Hello? Hey, guys. Thank y'all for staying. I'm sorry that my lack of faith means that we don't have enough handouts for everyone. But one thing I would ask, if you are like families or couples, if you could look around and see who doesn't have one handout and maybe give your handout to them, that'd be great. Who doesn't have a handout? The Stinsons right over here don't have a handout? Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So for those of you that don't know me, is that Mercedes? Wearing the mask, looking very mysterious. So I'm Steve Allen. I'm the pastor of discipleship and group life here at Christ Church. I am also the president of an organization called the Irving Community Action Network, or ICANN. And that's not really significant, and other than that has put me in the position this year because Christ Church is hosting our inclement weather shelter, that I'll be directing that shelter. And so all the prep and everything to get everything ready, that's why I'm here, okay? But I will not be doing it alone. So I'm going to introduce a couple of people to you right now. So right up here to my right is, go ahead and stand. I gave you the heads up. So this is Sheila Slade, okay? Now, I think all of you have enjoyed church this morning, okay? And I think Sheila went to church, but I do know that she fed between 30 and 40 homeless people this morning, okay? That's what she was doing on Sunday morning. And she does that through the organization that she founded, Helping Around Town, or HAT. She also is on the leadership team for an organization called Many Helping Hands. You can sit down. That's fine. But Sheila will be serving as our women's lead for our shelter, okay? So whenever our shelter is open, there will always be at least one man and one woman there. And most of that time, that one man and one woman will be me and Sheila, okay? The reason why you're here is because we need more than just us. But so that's Sheila. She's our women's lead, okay? Right behind her is and if you would like to help in some way, she does feedings multiple times during the week. So if your organization or your family are interested in helping her, she's right up here when we're done. Sitting right behind her is Dane and April Sanderson. And when it comes to street outreach with our homeless, there are 3 people in Irving that I think do it more than anyone else, and that's Sheila, Dane, and April, okay? And Dane, go ahead and stand, Dane. Thank you. You would have done this a year ago, but you're doing it now, okay? So Dane Sanderson, once again looking mysterious with his mask, he is our hospitality lead for the shelter. Our goal is to give shelter to our homeless in Irving when the temperature gets 32 degrees or below, okay? But we're not just giving them a bed. Our call to help the least of these is to not just provide for them, but to show them love. And there's no one better to making sure that our homeless are loved than Dane. So Dane will be lead in that area. Right next to him and his wife, April Sanderson. She is our administrative lead, okay? Our goal over the next 2 months or more, okay? We want to identify every homeless in Irving, okay? And part of that process is getting them pre-registered so we have information on every homeless person in Irving before our inclement weather shelter. I'll go over the why on that in a few minutes. So April heads up that process. She'll also head up and oversee intake that we'll do every night the shelter happens. And so she'll be heading up that. Right over here is Michelle Gian. Michelle is, you can have a seat. Michelle is our volunteer coordinator. And so when you make the decision that you want to volunteer for our workshop or for our shelter, you will go to CCIrving.com. You'll select inclement weather shelter, and you'll fill out that information. I'll get an email. You'll get an email from me, and Michelle will get an email, and she will be contacting you to tell you what you need to do next, okay? who else? Am I missing anyone else? Oh, yes, I am. So the food for our shelter, okay? Some shelters do where you sign up and so forth and so on. That's a great idea, but when you're doing all volunteer staff, it becomes very cumbersome. And so what we are doing is our meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner will be provided by 3 different individuals or organizations. The great David and Maria Stinson sitting right down here. Can y'all stand? Yeah, you have to stand too, David, just because. Okay. So they own a business called the Eats app that does an incredible amount of work for the homeless, not just in Irving, but in the Metroplex, okay? They feed, they do all sorts of things, okay? And they will be providing our food. We'll be paying them. They'll be providing our food every night the shelter happens, okay? So that's the introductions. Now let me go from there. So from my vantage point, we have been working to house the homeless for at least the last 7 or 8 years in Irving. Now, it started really with Many Helping Hands. Sheila's a part of that. Lana Hansen is a part of that. Some of y'all know Lana. And that organization started by just putting people in hotel rooms, just seeing the need and giving them a place to stay. That went on for a few years. And then Bear Creek Church and Dennis Webb began to partner with them. And for a couple of years, they would house the homeless during inclement weather at Bear Creek Church, okay? During that time period, over those, I think, 4 or 5 years or something like that, Christ Church would help out financially at different times. There'd be other groups. Crisis Ministries would donate food towards different things. There are other organizations that would do that. But what has happened as the homeless numbers have increased in Irving, and as we have connected with more and more homeless, that need we've realized how big it truly is. And so last year, during one of the worst winters on record, a group of 6, 7, however many you want to call, nonprofits, churches, all worked together to house 69 homeless up here at the Magnuson Hotel. Okay? At any one time during Snowvid, during that time period, there was on average about 55 or so that we were helping. But one of the things that you don't know, because you just don't hear about it very often, is that every winter there are multiple individuals that die on the streets because they have no place to go. When the temperature gets, 32 degrees, they have no place to go. When the temperature gets 20 degrees, they have no place to go. When it's raining, when it's sleeting, they have no place to go. And what our call is to help those folks get off the streets, to give them a place that's warm. Now, the tough thing is when it hits, 33, when it hits 40, they're still on the streets. But we can only do what we can do. But for sure, 32 or below, we're going to give them a place to stay. And that's what the inclement weather shelter is all about. One of the things I want to tell you is if you're not active in working with the homeless or with the least of these type of individuals on a regular basis, there is no greater blessing, at least for me, than doing that. There have been times when I haven't felt like going, when I haven't felt like participating, when I had something that would come up or an excuse, okay? And every time, if I fight through that and I go do the work that I'm supposed to do, God blesses me in huge ways. And so as we have worked to get the homeless off the streets the last 7 years, you now have the opportunity to not just help the homeless, but also to bless your life through blessing others. And that's what the inclement weather shelter is all about. And so I can, with 6 other nonprofits and churches, will be making that happen this year. As I said, anytime the temperature gets below 32 degrees. Now, we have some freedom. I was talking to someone about this earlier. They're like, well, it's still cold when it's 33 and 34. And that's true. Unfortunately, there has to be some cutoff. And so as we've looked at what other cities do and so forth and so on, we've came up with that guideline. Now, we've got some flexibility, And so I can guarantee you, if we know that there's a winter weather coming in and it's going to start sleeting, we're going to open it up, okay? But 32 degrees is the guideline. Now, how it will work, just giving you an overview of it, is that as lead of the shelter, I will determine based on using the AccuWeather app on your phone, I will determine based on the forecast that if by 10 a.m. that day, it's forecasted to get 32 degrees or below sometime during the next 12, 18, 24 hours, then I will make the call that we're implementing the Inclement weather shelter plan, okay? I will then send a text to about 15 different individuals, all of the organizations I mentioned or that are on this sheet here, as well as all of our leads, and there will be more leads than what are here today, okay? And then we'll have a phone tree that comes into effect. And at that point, they'll be contacting the volunteers that have already signed up to be on the list and find out who can be at the shelter that night. About 5:30 p.m. that evening, okay, we'll have multiple vans that will show up at right near McDonald's in downtown Irving. That's the place the homeless know to go to if they want to get transportation to the shelter. We'll pick them up. We'll bring them here to Christ Church. In the back of the property, there's a large 6,000 square foot building. That building is basically like a big gymnasium, a Christian life center, for those of you out here familiar with that term. There are restrooms, there are showers, there's a large storage room, there's some office space, and that's where they'll be taken to. Now, once they unload off the vans, they will then go and sit down. They'll be social distanced, and every person that comes will then take a COVID test. If they are found tested positive with COVID, at that point, then we will transport them either to the hospital if they need that, or if they don't need that, we will take them to a hotel with isolation. Okay? But that's how we will handle COVID in that way. There are a few more details. Mask will be required, so forth and so on, but you'll see that in your notes here. Okay? So at that point, they will then have the opportunity to begin signing up for some services. We'll have washers and dryers. They can sign up to utilize that. We'll have showers. They can sign up to do that. We'll have case management. I'll go over there in just a couple of minutes, but they can sign up to be a part of that. And then they'll just be able to hang out. All of that will happen by 6:30, and at 6:30, that's when the Stinsons and the Eats app will be providing food. It'll be done in a way where they'll be bringing it and preparing it and putting it in dishes or plates, and then taking it and serving to the homeless on tables. And they'll be able to eat, have people lined up to help them serve, help clean up. And then at that point, then, like I said, the homeless will be taking showers, doing laundry, hanging out, that sort of thing. About 10 o'clock, there'll be lights out. And lights out means that the majority of lights, not all, but the majority of the lights will be turned out. And that way people can start, sleeping, okay? Now, understand, we have enough space at this shelter for between 75 and 90 individuals socially distanced, okay? And so how much sleep they get, we'll be providing earplugs, but, it won't be like sleeping at your house, but they'll at least be out of the weather, okay? 7 o'clock the next morning, that's when the lights go back on. Showers, laundry, all that sort of thing happens again. 8 o'clock, I think it's 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning is when breakfast will be served. Dennis Webb and Bear Creek Church will be providing all of our breakfast meals, okay? And then from 8:30 to 10 o'clock every morning, we'll be doing case management. Now, like I said, we don't want to just provide a bed, okay? We want to provide a bed, but not just that. We want to provide a bed, we want to love them, and then we want to provide services that will quite possibly change their life from there on. If they're willing and if they're interested, Family Promise of Irving with some other organizations will be providing case management where we get their information and find out, do they need a job? What job skills do they have? you're not housed. What's keeping you from being housed? How can we help you to get housed? A lot of times, there are a tremendous number of times that there are different things. They don't have an ID. Okay, they have tried to get housed, but because they don't have a job, they don't have the money to pay an administrative fee for an apartment, and so there are different ways that we can help them to cross some of those barriers to housing, and that's what case management is all about. So, like I said, 8:30 to 10, that'll happen. About 10:30, we'll load back up into vans and take them back down to downtown Irving and drop them off. Now, if the forecasted temperature is to continue for consecutive days, then at that point we will stay open for consecutive days. Crisis Ministries will be providing lunches at around noonish. We'll have TVs there with some movies going and different things like that. We'll have cards and dominoes and all that sort of thing. It'll be a good, warm environment where they can just hang out and escape the weather. And although, like I told the group earlier, okay, let's make sure we understand what our prayers are, okay? Now, I don't like to tell people that, this is what you have, but, okay, we're praying that the winter will not be as bad as last year, okay? If you're not praying for that, please add that to your list right now, because we don't want another snowvid, okay? None of us do. I don't want it, just personally. I definitely don't want these folks to have to go through that again. But if another snowvid happens, then we will be prepared to house them for 2 weeks or whatever it was last year that we housed them, okay? And that's the long and the short of it. Now, where do you come in? Where you come in is there's no way we can do this without volunteer help, without your help, okay? This isn't like, asking you to sign up for children's ministry on Sunday morning, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know when it's going to get 32 degrees. And so we could have an incredibly mild November and December, and next thing you know, it hits in January. So it's hard for you to schedule. It's hard for us to schedule. So, for instance, April with her admin team. Now, typically, she might need maybe 2 or 3 people to help her, okay? Unfortunately, because of what I just said, okay, she doesn't just need 2 or 3 volunteers. She needs 9 or 10 volunteers, because when the shelter gets implemented, we know before 10 o'clock the texts go out. You may have, a very important thing that you need to go to that night, and you're not available. So we need to make sure we have enough volunteers for April so that she can have 2 or 3 people that their schedules are open. Dane is hospitality. What hospitality is they're going to handle, like I said, they're going to make sure that our homeless are loved, but they're also going to get our homeless signed up to use the washers and dryers, get them signed up for showers, get them signed up for case management. They're going to be monitoring some of the things that go on for us. And so he doesn't need 10 people. He needs 20 people, okay, for that. Food serving, okay, to help the Stinsons, to help Dennis Webb, to help Ruby and Crisis Ministries. There's all sorts of opportunities like this, and not just when the shelter happens, but also when it comes time to, one of the things that we will do, like I said, that building is like a big gymnasium, and so we're going to have partitioned off 3 areas. One will be where the men sleep, one will be where the women sleep, and one will be a commons area where we'll feed and where they can hang out. Okay, we're looking at having to build 50 to 60 partitions made of PVC and tarps, and we'll have to have that done before we, hopefully before the 1st of November. And so to do that means we're going to have to do a couple of work days to do that. That building right now is being used for an auto business, a paint and body business. That area is going to have to be cleaned, okay? We're going to need to go through every day, and just like we do here at Christ Church, wipe down the sinks, wipe down this, that, or the other. We will, I don't know if y'all remember, most of you don't, but what was happening is this room was fogged in between worship services and then after worship services to help with COVID, okay? We'll do that at the shelter. All of that stuff means that there'll be ongoing volunteer work that needs to take place, and that's where you come in. And so like I said, if you're interested in helping us by volunteering, then the first thing that we need for you to do is to go to CCRespond.com, scroll down to where it says Inclement Weather Shelter, and just simply sign up. I think I said this earlier. You'll get an email from me. You'll also get a link to our website, okay? Our website now has a page that is just focused on inclement weather. It has all of this information. It also, I can guarantee you a few things. One is this has some basic COVID protocols. We have a page and a half of COVID protocols. The website allows you to link to that, okay? We'll have mental health procedures. What happens if someone is not on their meds and they get where it's tough to handle them? We'll have an on-call professional counselor that we can contact to get help with that, okay? We'll have security there whenever the building is open, all of that sort of stuff, and making sure I cover everything. But the biggest thing to understand is if you want information beyond today, if you have friends or organizations that want to be a part, go to the website, inclement weather page, all this stuff is there, and you can see it. It'll also say CC Respond for volunteering from there. Okay, at that point then, we will help you get plugged in. We'll find out, okay, Vince Ponce, what are you interested in doing? We have these 6 or 7 categories. He will tell us. Vince Ponce is a hospitality kind of guy. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyways. But, okay, so we'll say, cool. We'll ask 2 things of you. If you haven't worked with the homeless before, we will have 4 videos we'd like for you to watch, okay? 3 are just about an overview of homelessness and what it means to be homeless and how we work with the homeless. One of them will be on de-escalation, and we'll ask for you to watch those videos just at your leisure. That'll help you, I think, feel more prepared in working with the homeless. And then the other piece is we'll be doing a background check on if you have gotten a background check here at Christ Church before because of the children's ministry or student ministry or whatever, you don't have to get another one. If you don't have a background check, we'll need for you to get a background check. And that will all happen up front, and then we'll get you plugged in. If it's hospitality, then we'll give your name to Dean, who will be contacting you and kind of going over that, what we're looking for, so forth and so on. And any other discussion or training or whatever, then will be done on that level. So, test? Oh, yes, pets, thank you. So one of the things about our homeless folks is that there are many times that homeless folks are tied to pets, and they'll have pets even while they live on the streets. And I think we've all heard and are familiar with the idea of service animals. And many of the homeless, they don't have a doctor telling them, but their relationship with their animal is very much like that, on that level. And the sad truth is that if we did not give a place for the pets, that many of the homeless would not come because they're not going to be separated from their pets. We will not be housing pets at the 6,000 square foot building, but there will be a building right across from that where we will have some kennels in place. We'll have food and stuff like that so that they can bring their pets and still check on them and that they can get out of the elements. So that's another piece too. So that is, I think, an overview of what the shelter will look like and how you can help. And so I'm going to go ahead and say questions. Yes, ma'am. Okay. That's a good question. So if a homeless individual comes, and a lot of times they're going to have what they're wearing, okay, but they may not have a coat, or they may have a windbreaker or something. What happens a lot of times, especially in the winter, is they'll have a sleeping bag, but they'll go through sleeping bags quick because if winter weather comes, that all's wet and it's gone, okay? So we have systems set up. We have organizations in place that can help someone with a coat, that can help someone get socks, which are very important with the homeless, and so forth and so on. So that's part of what the hospitality team will be doing, is finding out if they have needs like that. And then we'll contact the main place. We'll contact Many Helping Hands. We'll contact Bear Creek and some of those that have, clothing type closets to help them out and they'll have that before their leave. If you look on the back page, you'll find a list of, not everything, but a pretty good list of all the different items that we're going to need for the shelter. One of the things you'll see on there is sleeping bags. Sleeping bags, we need between 500 to 600 because we will not be washing them. It's just too time-consuming and so forth and so on. Many of them will have sleeping bags already, but we will be prepared to provide a sleeping bag along with a cot for them to sleep on at the shelter. And then when they leave, they can take the sleeping bag with them, not the cot. So, but that's why there's 500 to 600. Now, blankets and bath towels, every person that comes to when they're registered, okay, they'll receive a bracelet and a number. And they'll also receive a towel that will have a number on it, and they'll have a couple of blankets and have numbers on it, okay? And those things, there's always exceptions, but the plan would be to get those things back, and then we'll launder them ourselves, washers and dryers, and so forth and so on, and then those will be reused, but not sleeping bags. So that kind of gives an idea on that sort of thing. But this is a list. Now, let me just say about this list, please. Christ Church is not taking donations right now for these materials. The reason why this list is in your hands is what we're asking for you to do is I'm only one guy, and I've got some pretty good connections, but I don't have connections like all of us. And so you may work for a business that might say, yeah, 500 to 600 sleeping bag, that's going to cost a few $1,000s, but we're willing to do that, okay? You may know of a business or an individual who's willing to do that. Or someone that's saying, we'll provide the PVC pipe, okay? Just tell us how much and we'll make sure that's to you. That's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to connect with businesses, organizations, individuals, churches who would be willing to partner with us by taking care of one of these things for us, okay? And so if you know of a business, organization, church, individual that's willing to do that, the first thing that I would ask is you to contact them and see, are you interested? At that point, I am more than willing. I'll set up lunch, breakfast, dinner. I'll meet them at midnight if that's what it takes to enlist their help. And so I'll do all the heavy lifting at that point, tell them what we're doing, tell them what it's all about, and go from there. But if you will kind of start that initial step, and then we can go from there. If you don't need me to do that, that's great too. But I'm just saying, help me with that. And my email is steve@CCIrving.com. You can contact me that way. That's really the best way. If you've got my phone number, all of you should know, you can text me, and I will get back with you on that. But the biggest thing is just to know that we need your help. We need your help as a volunteer. We need your prayers incredibly. And it takes a community. Greg mentioned that our goal is to end homelessness. That can't happen with me by myself. That can't happen with Christ Church. That happens with a community, okay? And this shelter is the same way. It's going to take a community of individuals who are committed to helping in Jesus' name to make this happen, and that's why we need you. So if you're interested, let me know, and we'll go from there. Any other questions? Okay. So this afternoon, I mentioned the website, Inclement Weather Shelter page on the CCIrving website. This video will also be on there. So if you know people that want to help or participate, it's an easy to send them there. They can watch the video, they can read the information, and go from there. I'll be up here. Several of us will be up here for a few minutes. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here. And before we leave, we're going to end with a word of prayer. And I'd like to ask Brother Claudio, would you mind closing us in prayer?